One of the many things that young artists encounter that is so difficult to deal with is sales, making the art and selling the art. When you look online and elsewhere, you get the impression that people would engage with the idea of buying works of art, collecting them, if I may use a better word. But the difficulty here is this, that most people who see art never buy art. Because one, they don't really care about its significance, or it doesn't really resonate with them. This is partly because of how art is placed in society. Some people think it's only for rich people, or for people who think they got too much money to throw around, to outright prejudice that why should I pay for a work hanging on my wall and all that. But if you sweep that aside, there's some more important things to consider. Next time you walk into any building, any house, apartment, room, look at the walls. They're either bare, they're not set up properly, there's no space, there's no lighting, there's hardly any place to hang anything. So one of the main things with when people buy things like a work of art is that they want to be able to display it. And the modern person, the young person, or the aspiring professional, the spaces that they occupy or that you can rent doesn't even give you the room for it. Most average landlords don't even want you to hang anything on their walls. So people are reduced to sticking posters on walls and so forth. So young people growing up do not actually get the opportunity to, see art for what it is. They see art through posters, through images of their idols and stuff like that. But that are just posters, printed posters. When it comes to art, some people are privileged to have parents who actually own artworks. Those ones are more likely to have spaces or rent spaces where there's available walls to hang works of art. But for the vast majority, it is something they have to learn to include in the spaces that they do have. Money, time, ambition permitting. So one of the things an artist must do is you have to also visualize the size of the works you're doing. Where would they fit into? Most artists paint on large canvases, myself included. We tend to like pictures that are big. But the only people who have spaces that are big enough to contain or to hold most sizes of artwork have got to be quite well to do, with ample spaces, with a lot of hanging spaces for the work to be situated on, as a matter of fact. So what you see is that if you're being strategic with your production, what you have to consider is to frame your work to be no more than 90 cm by 90 cm. Not more than that. The reason being that there are more of that kind of space to hang a work of art than anything larger for the average household. So what you do have is a situation where you must consider the size of work you're doing. The reason I say that is because most works that are painted by young artists just hang out in their studio and never see the light of day. They all nobody ever sees them because there's nowhere to hang them. The only spaces that you can hang them becomes gallery walls, museum if you're particularly lucky, or exhibition spaces of one type or the other. But the collector generally does not have that level of space, except for the real big collectors who have sometimes their own museums, gallery and all that. Most collectors are actually inhabiting the same kind of space. So in creating your work of art, it's good to bear that in mind. The fact that the size of your work is smallish does not mean that it will not convey or command good prices. It's just something to keep in mind as a young artist. Most of us made the mistake of starting out making large works. But those works, while they may be impressive, they are hardly bought except when the artist is a little bit more established and known. But if you're starting out and your works of art are sizable, that is, somebody can actually buy it, carry it and go home on the same day, you have a far better chance of making sales at a higher level or percentage all the time than someone who has large works of art that may be spectacular, but the intending buyer or collector sees it as a liability in terms of where do I keep it, where do I hang it, and such like. So as a young artist, you have to bear that in mind. You have to think about those things. They are technical, material, and you may find out that, oh, if I did that, I'm limiting myself, but actually you're not. What you're trying to be is strategic. You want people to actually collect your work. You don't just want to paint it for therapy. So consider that when you start making your next work or when you're buying the material for your next project. Always think in terms of things that are sizable, things that someone can carry away at any time from your studio, from a gallery space, and so on and so forth. And the good thing is this: the more you can get people to buy your work, the more they can take away either on the exhibition day or later, the more chances that people will demand more of it, because it's concise, it's portable, and you have actually thought ahead and know that people do have this constraint in terms of the spaces in which they inhabit. This is something I learned a while ago, but on a hard way, because I always thought that once somebody likes stuff, they're going to buy it. But I was reminded by an artist, a curator actually, in our gallery show that, listen, people will buy this stuff if they could take it, but some of these things are a bit too big. They will still sell, but you have to wait a couple of years when the same people upgrade to larger properties and so on and so forth. And then they are likely going to maybe come back and pick it up, but you may have missed the opportunity. And that made me think that this is a wise thing to consider when you're creating a work of art, especially if you're creating it and hoping or building it more from a point of view of actually liking that people will buy and take it away and hang on their walls and broadcast your ideas to their community, environment, and such like. This is a crucial information that most artists are not even aware of. Yes, the large canvases and stuff is impressive. People like to look at them. But you go and check, they don't sell well. They don't. And they don't sell well not because they're not good, just because people, one, don't have the space. Two, sometimes if you're a first-time exhibitor, you're just a young artist, people don't like buying very large works from young artists. I think if you are established and somewhere in your mid-range, mid-career, people start collecting larger works. Purely for convenience sake, it's more difficult to manage. It takes up a lot of space. And space is money. People don't have space to just keep things, or lock their money in canvases they don't know whether it's going to have value or not. But a small work of art is tradable, is easier to handle and portable, and you can lend it out for a while and bring it back in one piece. So consider that next time when you're planning your next project. As a matter of fact, I can say this like an advice. Just try and reduce the size of your work. Reduce it. Just reduce it to something like 1 meter by 1 meter. Let it be the standard for now and see how it gets you. If you start going well, you might then make it bigger and make it 1.5 meter by 1.5 meter, whatever you want to do. But test out your audience first with sizable 1 meter by 1 meter canvases, and then market that, and then if it takes off, you can expand. And the funny thing and the good thing about it is that if somebody buys a 1 meter by 1 meter artwork from you, I can guarantee you that if you make one that is 2 meter by 2 meter and they like it, you sold. The person will buy it. But if you start out with a 2 meter by 2 meter, it's harder to make that sale. And it's even harder to get the person to come back much later to pick up something that is 1 meter by meter, because somehow art is actually sold on the spur of the moment. People see a piece of work, they like it. The rest is whether they're going to buy it or not. People don't really change their mind that much. They either like something or they don't. So if you miss your opportunity, it takes quite a while for it to come back. So with that said, as you develop your art life, art history, artwork, bear in mind that size does matter. And if you're a beginner, keep your size modest. With that said, have a great day. Ciao.